Alright, so we're going into the manga section, and once again, we're going to start with Bleach, and I'm going to start that up. So, Bleach, we kind of diverged from the 2 formula, and now we've hit 3, since we focused a little bit on Karin and Yuzu in the beginning, where there's like a bit of an earthquake, which is
A
typical
bit,
for Japan,
which is
but
why she thought nothing of it at first.
yeah, it's like typical of Japan, but even Karin at the end is like, huh, it's still shaking, like, because oftentimes in Japan it's just a tremor, besides the big ones that everybody hears about, but this one seems like it's a bit different. She's like, this earthquake has been going on pretty long, hasn't it? So, yeah. And then of course we actually see like a pretty interesting like mugshot of the Soul King, and says like, the twin pupils that see the future, or like, which is okay, whatever. But it couldn't predict that it was going to get slashed in half. But
Nope.
yeah, so
Yeah,
Ichigo's pissed.
and I mean, the main point probably of this chapter, I'd have to say, is to basically show that yes, there's nothing they can do to fix what happened, what Ichigo did to the Soul King, and that that all the dimensions are basically going to crumble to nothing because of what Ichigo did.
Right. And we also got an interesting reveal that apparently the Soul Society created the Soul King, which does make some sort of sense to the point where he can be killed so easily. He's more of a construct. Like,
But
this is just going off what was said by Yuha Bach. Like,
but
he's like
that
a construct that's been created by the Soul Society to maintain balance.
but here's something that's very interesting. If that's true, and the Soul Society did create the Soul King, then how is it that the Soul King's destruction destroys all three dimensions as opposed to just the two, leaving the Soul Society behind?
I'll tell you why. It's because the reason why they created him in the first place was to maintain balance, because before the problem was that Quincy's were eradicating like all the hollows, so the balance of like the souls that were, between the 3 worlds was becoming heavily tipped in one favor. And so what they did, besides, the whole war, was apparently, I guess, they created the Soul King and the Soul Palace. I'm assuming, we don't know quite yet, but
Because it just seems a little odd to me. Like, okay, if that's the case, then how did they remain balanced before?
well, that's the
You know,
problem. They weren't, because the Quincy's started to come
no,
out of the woodwork.
before the Quincy's showed up, like they had to have some system in place that, and but it seems odd that they honestly they like it seems like what happened is that they screwed up major, and that is when the Quincy's came out and started creating this imbalance, they were forced to be very heavy-handed, which is why the Quincy's hate them so much.
Right.
But then but then with the imbalance existing, they had to create the Soul King to create and the Soul Palace to create balance. But they backed themselves in the corner because pretty much it seems like whatever process they used to create the Soul King and create the balance kind of sort of connected him. That I mean, I guess that's why everything's falling apart is because they so deeply connected his existence to the existence of the three dimensions of Earth, Soul Society, and Wiggle Mundo,
Hmm.
which is probably the reason why that it is that it made Juan Bach did this was because he knew that. I mean, it's the only reason, like they screwed themselves over. They saved themselves from what the Quincy's did back then, but they only set themselves up for this even bigger tragedy that's happening now.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they guarded the Soul King really, really well. It's just that Yuha is Yuha
Yuha.
Bach. And his plan
And
was pretty good, and his powers
and
unbelievable.
now the fact that this is happening now further, I mean, cements the people. theory that maybe Ichigo or somebody else important is going to have to sacrifice themselves and become the new Soul King or something to keep the balance.
Maybe.
But here's another thing that we have to mention. Kisuke Uruhara's face. Like,
Yes.
none of the other nobody else, like, everyone else was, like, freaking out, like, what's going on? But the look on Kisuke's face he was so mortified. You knew he knew what would happen. I mean, he obviously said to the captains later on, yeah, soon after, oh, Soul King's died. But the fact that he knew, like, this really could, like, makes you question Kisuke, because, like, how none of the other captains knew about what the hell was going on.
Hmm.
But instantly, Kisuke knew what was going on. He knew instantly and was mortified about it. So that tells me he knows a lot, and not only does he know more than he has led on to be, but he probably has also been around a lot longer than we originally thought.
Yeah, Kisuke, he knows a lot about like Squad Zero and the Soul King in general, because we
Which is,
know he modified his that healing pool after Tenjiro's uh Shikai ability.
yeah, but let's see, here's another interesting thing. If Kisuke is, like, because I know a couple chapters back when Bach first got to the Soul King, everyone was thinking that, okay, what if, since Bach supposedly said that the Soul King is his father,
Hmm.
what about him having did he have other children? And if that's the case, some people were theorizing that Kisuke might have been one of the Soul King's sons.
Hmm.
But then this also contradicts what they said in this chapter, him being a construct.
Right.
So if he's a construct, then how did he, like, I don't know. All I know is that Kisuke is one connected motherfucker. He
Yeah,
knows.
he knows everything.
Yes, he does. Kisuke knows everything.
Yeah, and of course the last thing we really have to mention is the
Oh
fact
yeah.
that Ukitake is gonna do something. And I can't wait. I'm stoked because I love Ukitake. I want to see what the
Oh
fuck he's
yeah.
gonna do.
Well, last week we got in another manga we got teased that a character was going to do something, and we still don't even know what they were going to do. But we'll get to that later.
Hmm. So I mean, this chapter, yeah, was kind of confusing on some level. Oh boy.
Yes, exactly as you think it is.
Um, this chapter was
But it
good.
feels.
Yeah.
That's right, it's your favorite, your one and only guest speaker of the Zero Word!
Yeah, it's not time for him yet.
No, it's not time for him yet. So now he just created more work for you, and now you have to edit this out.
Nah, it won't. But I thought the chapter was good
Oh!
overall. Um,
Yes, it was. Next,
Pop it like a jelly, pop it like a jelly, pop it
how
like
about
a
we talk about One Piece now?
motherfucking jelly.
yeah,
I
I
don't
guess
give shit. I
that's a good
don't give shit.
idea.
So, because like I said, it was very simple, so there shouldn't be too much to talk about. But yeah, what happened does require some discussion, a little bit of discussion.
Yeah, definitely.
So I believe it was 756. I think
776.
776.
Oh my gosh.
What happened to you watching Boy Meets World? Or not Boy Meets World, friggin' Saved by the Bell.
He's about to get spoiled, so.
A heart will be your guide. Raise the sail and take the helm. A legendary play.
So,
Alright.
we apologize for that interruption. We've put a muzzle on him temporarily, but I don't know how long it'll hold.
I threw a cannoli in the corner.
It's
I
stuck to the
think
ceiling. It has like a time limit before it drops.
he hasn't noticed the cannoli yet because he's too busy drinking the coffee that was left on the floor.
There you go.
Alright, anyway, back to One Piece. chapter 776.
Yep.
Now, we should have seen this coming since, Oda has been chapter by chapter finishing off the executives and the various plot points in preparation for the final fight.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is that this chapter made Kiro seem like a much more badass character. But many of the issues people have with this chapter is the fact that it made Diamante seem so weak.
Yeah, though the Half Moon Glaive was awesome.
Of course. One moment.
Yu Yu Hakusho, really? It's One Piece.
Alright, now let's try and continue this.
Yeah.
Alright, anyway, on my last thought, I was talking about how this chapter caused Diamante to seem weak because, A, he's a top executive, so you figure he would be super strong.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem was that's what the issue that always happens when you take a chapter where it makes one character seem more badass against a character that's been built up to be really good,
Right.
which is then it makes the other guys, See, I think the thing is that people, at least for the top executives, in Doflamingo, people wanted at least like 2 to 3 chapters minimum. But at least for the top executives, 2 to 3 chapters minimum. Doflamingo, maybe like 3 to 4 chapters is what people want.
Yeah.
But the problem is that for the top executives, or at least for the Diamante and Pika, for sure, they're like next week's probably going to be Zoro versus Pika,
Hopefully.
and Pika, and it's probably going to be mostly that fight, which is why. And then Zoro's finally, after like nearly 2 years in this fight against Pika, continuously fighting Pika for like 2 years in the manga, he's finally going to beat him.
Finally. Oh my gosh.
And then the next now, this is where things get tricky because then after that, it's the only two people left are Trable and Doflamingo.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? Oh, sorry, I forgot. There is one other person that's standing in the way of our Luffy versus Doflamingo fight.
Oh, yeah. Freaking Bellamy.
Bellamy.
God.
Bellamy.
Just
Luffy.
kill him.
No, he's not. Luffy's not. Luffy. See, here's the funny thing is that Luffy, the Straw Hats technically, I guess, don't directly try. Like they don't purposely try to kill anybody. They just try to knock them out for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So, occasionally they might set off an accidental explosion that might kill some fodder characters, but that's not their intention.
Right.
So Luffy again is going to and as we've seen, is not even going to hit. But of course, when that chapter came out, like weeks, maybe even a month or so ago, when that chapter came out with Bellamy hitting Luffy, we were like, seriously? The entire fandom was like screaming, use Conqueror's Hockey. He'll get knocked the fuck out, and then he'll be done. Then you can go face Doflamingo. So that way, Law can use his one arm to fight Trable. But after the Bellamy's taken down and Luffy finally gets back to the main fight, this is where things get complicated. Because you'll have Doflamingo and Trable in the same room, with Luffy and Law in the same room. So you can't necessarily have Law have an entire chapter dedicated to just Law versus Trable, and then Trable get beaten. Because what's going to happen, I think the Law and Luffy it's going to be like a 2-on-2 fight, I think, at first, and then for maybe a chapter, anywhere from like maybe a chapter to 2 chapters of a 2-on-2 fight, and then Law's going to beat Trable, but Law's going to be like hurt to the point where he can no longer fight, leaving just Luffy versus Doflamingo.
Probably.
But that can't, and then after that, it has to be at least 2 to 3 chapters. Hopefully.
Yeah, definitely.
Luffy versus Doflamingo, because I mean, in theory, I would love a 5-chapter fight between the two of them, but that's not going to happen. Because Trable and Doflamingo fights are probably going to be intertwined for a little bit, but which is going to take away, I feel, from the whole amount of time we should get from this Doflamingo fight. But I highly doubt that chapter after Trable gets beaten. I don't think Oda's going to do that to us. Trable gets beaten this chapter, next chapter Dolphy gets beaten. No, that's not going to happen. That never happens in
No.
anything. The only one, like, it just doesn't happen that way, because if you look back at all, like, I mean, I'm not going to count anything in the East Blue Saga, because those arcs weren't that long,
Mhm.
except for the not Fishman,
Arlong
Arlong
Park.
Park.
Yeah.
But from Arlong Park on, the second in command person that Zoro would always beat gets beat, and then he would usually be a couple like maybe depending on what else is still going on, anywhere from like 5 to 10 chapters, or 5 to 10, or or like 3 to 5 episodes, depending on if you're watching the anime or the manga or reading the manga.
Mhm.
But see, the thing is that Law has, or not Law, for the last 2 arcs, this arc and the Punk Hazard arc, Zoro has been facing the third strongest member on the third strongest,
Hmm.
because Law had to take on the second strongest.
Right.
Because you cannot tell me that Monet, as good as she was better than Virgo.
Nah, hell no.
And now, and as terms for Pika, who's stronger, Pika or Trable, I'm just gonna say Trable, just because of the fact that Law's taking him on, and it's, I guess, implied that since Law is captain of his crew, that he should be stronger than Zoro. But I'm not gonna say that's something that's set in stone.
Mhm.
But it just seems that to me that Trable is the one that's the strongest of Doflamingo's top executives. Like, I think it's Trable, Pika, and then Diamante.
I don't know. I think Pika's had the best showing so far, but
Well, I mean, Trable has shown. Well, remember, just the only answer you need. Trable was the only one of the top executives tasked with protecting Sugar, which was such a key point to his rule on the island.
mhm.
If Pico was stronger, Pico would have been guarding. If Diamante would have been stronger, Diamante would have been protecting. That's why I feel Trable's
Well, Pika guarded Doflamingo.
But Doflamingo, well, no. Pika protected the palace,
Mhm.
because he didn't want anybody getting near the palace. But as you just look at how the fact that Sugar being taken out was the linchpin that started this whole Doflamingo's downfall. Like,
Mhm.
if Sugar wouldn't have been taken out by Usopp, then they would have lost.
Hmm.
And Doflamingo knew that from the start. That's why he had his strongest top executive protect her, so that way it would be guaranteed. Just, but power aside, let's get back to talking about the actual the chapter that happened here, and that is, now there are a lot of other things. What happened was, I liked in certain aspects, because like I said, Kiros was heavily played up in this chapter.
Mhm.
He somehow managed to overcome the odds of the wavy land to actually put up a decent fight against Diamante, and then Diamante doing his whole, what was it, half moon slice or something,
Half Moon Glaive, yeah.
which was awesome in itself. But to make it seem even more awesome, Oda actually had it, drew it so that way it looked like he cut through the very text bubble itself.
Mhm.
Both times that he did the technique.
Yeah.
And then, now, it kind of got confusing when you see the panel of him putting out, like, the firework cannons. You're like, what the hell could he be doing?
Mhm.
And, of course, the technique is genius, because it's him. He turned iron barb spiky balls, into, wavy material that makes it look like confetti, shoots it up in the air, and then it just comes raining down
Yeah.
as it turns back to normal.
Right.
Like, it's shot up in the air, turns back to normal, and then comes raining down. Which I thought was that's a pretty useful move for taking out a large group of people.
Hell yeah.
Now, we also got to see a new technique of Robin's in the form of her flower umbrella tree type thing,
Mhm.
which is kind of weird because there was actually flowers in there, not just her arm.
Yeah.
Which surprised me. So, I mean, I know it's called the flower fruit, and when you hear the word like when you hear a devil fruit called the flower fruit, you're not going to think, oh, it'll allow you to bloom body parts. No, you think you would produce like deadly flowers or something.
Right, like Kurama.
Exactly, but that's not the case. That wasn't the case until now. We actually see her incorporate some type of flower into her flowering hands,
Hmm.
which is what confuses me the most because she used her this technique to block the iron bars to protect them both from getting hit. But if anyone remembers, her arms and legs and other body parts still get connected to her. So if they get hurt, she gets hurt, which makes it confusing because that's just the same as putting your arms up to block.
Right.
But I guess that's why there was the addedness of the flowers. I guess maybe on top as an extra layer. I don't know.
Maybe.
Because you didn't see her like screaming in pain from it because that looked painful as all hell.
Hmm.
And just when we thought once again, now this time it wasn't it wasn't Rebecca. This time we got another glimmer of hope that Rebecca was gonna finally, like just when we all already gave up hope, Oda just dick teases us once again and puts in a moment that makes it look like Rebecca's about to finally do some actual fighting. And guess what happens? Nope. Kiros is like, sit down. I don't. You have you competed in the Coliseum without harming or killing anybody. Your hands are clean, and I want to keep it that way. So no more fighting. You're not allowed to pick. You're not gonna be able to pick. You're not gonna pick a sword up ever again. And if you do, you taint the memory of your mother. He pulled the mother card, and that literally is the fine. Like if anything else before this wasn't if you didn't think it was done and over with before this, it's now done. All nails have been nailed into the coffin. She's been buried 6 feet under.
Yep.
Grass has grown over the patch that was dug up. It's done. It's a dead issue. She is not gonna fight ever again. Not even pick up a sword and fight the way she did before, which is just basically knocking them over, making them trip and fall, stuff like that. Because now she'll have that feeling that if she ever tries to harm anyone or kill somebody or fight the way that normal people fight in this series, she will make her hands dirty and basically go against her mother's wishes. And she was already an emotional wreck before this, saying that, oh, these clean hands of yours was a gift from your mother. Like, really, Oda?
Yeah, but
I mean,
you gotta realize,
yeah, I know.
Kiros is speaking in code. Let me translate for you. Listen, Rebecca. You want to fight? Listen. You suck. You're gonna get in. You're gonna embarrass yourself. Let your boy take care of this. All right?
No, that's just I know she sucks because because at no point did she ever make the effort to actually try and harm someone. That was the problem the entire time.
Hmm.
And before the whole Sabo thing and everything else that was going on, we thought with the fact that the Marimara, she had prospects for the Marimara no Mi. We thought maybe if she got the Marimara no Mi, she might actually become a fighter and be able to fight. But as things came, we learned more information and stuff happened. It just became less and less likely that she was not just gonna not be a straw hat, but not even leave the island for any reason whatsoever.
Right.
And she's not even gonna pick up a sword ever again even to defend herself. Because now with Kiros around, that doesn't have to happen.
Hmm.
Now, like I said, this chapter. Before I move on to the rest of the chapter, the one important thing you got to note here is that a lot of people, what is Rebecca going to do? Now, since she's seemingly going to just play another VV part and then become the princess of the land, you have to also remember that technically she's not a princess. She was never a princess, ever,
Hmm.
because her mother faked her death and was technically disowned since she was dead. So her children cannot, her husband and her child do not become royalty.
Right.
However, most likely Kyros will end up becoming the new king. I say that because I think King Riku is gonna just basically say that I can't handle anymore. I'm too old. King Riku's too old. He's not gonna want to take over. He's gonna somehow, Kyros is gonna try and, deny or not. He's not gonna want to do it at first, but King Riku is gonna somehow convince him. And then so then you're gonna have your king Kyros and his little princess Rebecca. That's what I feel, but as we all know, this arc has been so long and so crazy that it's still very hard to see how the aftermath is going to go once Doflamingo falls.
Right.
Too many things are unpredictable at this point.
Which is a good thing.
Now, yes, it is. Keeps the story interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unfortunately, as many people were thinking, Robin didn't do anything to help Kyros whatsoever, other than just protecting Rebecca so he doesn't have to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thought, oh, she's going to give him a leg. She's going to give him a leg. She's going to give him a leg. Nope. And which made it even more difficult because A, like we said earlier, he had the waving land made him difficult to move around. Then you had the raining iron bars raining down, shredding him to bits. And then you also have Diamante, who shot his full leg, and so he should be seriously not be able to move, but somehow he did. Not only to dodge the first half moon slice, but to be able to outbeat, literally clash with the second half moon attack and break through and just slice up Diamante like a friggin' turkey on Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Of course, yes, there was plenty of blood, but no decapitations. We already got our missing leg of Kyros and the missing arm of Law. And our somewhat decapitation of a Doflamingo clone.
Mm-hmm.
So other than that, we're not going to actually get a real decapitation. But here's the thing that pisses us people off the most. Yes, Kyros was a badass for being able to survive all that, but he didn't display any armament hardening, which is what he should have had to have done in order to break through Diamante's defense and be able to do enough damage to take him down. Because Doflamingo is a very powerful pilot in the New World. He might not be the most powerful because he's not Yonko level, but the fact is Doflamingo has been set up to be a very powerful pilot. So you figure his top 3 men would be monsters, should be very strong, and should also know both forms of hockey. Now, the fact that he was able to teach Rebecca observation hockey shows that he knows it, but you would think that he has armament hockey, but no, he just gets really angry, pulls a DBZ and just gets really angry and yells, and suddenly his power is stronger. Literally, even Diamante was like, how the hell are you getting stronger? Mm-hmm. You shouldn't be able to move. You're just getting stronger. What the hell? How is yelling going to make you stronger? Right. Well, ask Goku. Anyway, so yeah. But in terms of the fight I liked in the sense that it was cool. It had some pretty badass moments, and it had a pretty badass finish.
Yeah.
And it created progression because we have another Doflamingo. We have a top executive name. The only thing is that it downplayed Diamante and even further downplayed the already horrible character of Rebecca. I was hoping for at least a little redemption. Maybe not necessarily as a fighter, but just as a character. But still, no. They wouldn't let her dig out of a hole that was dug.
Mm-hmm.
So, but overall, it was still a pretty good chapter.
Yeah, definitely.
Alright. Fairy Tail.
Yeah, let's go to Fairy Tail. It's not time for Toriko yet. It's just not time.
No. Fairy Tail. 419, I believe, right?
Yes.
Chapter 419 of Fairy Tail. Now,
oh, fuck. This chapter.
This chapter had a lot of the it was basically the short version of short summary was it was a almost series reset button.
Mhm.
Basically, that's showing that he used this time skip to like put a reset button because now not only is this arc going to just be about getting the gang back together, but it's going to be almost like reintroducing every character to us,
Mhm.
which is good and bad at the same time because that means since now like we all knew when Natsu showed up in last week's chapter that we knew that it was going to be that kind of arc where they're going to have to get everyone back together.
Yep.
But now that with this chapter, it seems even more so that it's not only going to be that, but it's that each gathering of each member is probably going to be longer than we originally thought.
Mhm.
Because it's going to be more of like, maybe, I would say, based on this, I say it goes from mostly one chapters with a couple of like 2-3 chapter recruiting into minimally 2 chapters covered for every new member they find, I think. Minimally. Just based on the way they work this chapter.
Yeah.
Because it feels like, okay, they're going to try and reintroduce the characters, so they need a little more story than just what one chapter can contain to quote unquote reintroduce the character to us.
Mhm.
Now, here are some other issues. Now, basically, what happened is, Natsu basically stands trial for his crimes and what he did to the Colosseum, but because the king was so thankful for what he and the other and Fairy Tail did for the king a year ago at the last Grand Magic Games, he pardons it, and Natsu has that smug little smile on his face,
Mhm.
saying, "I knew I would get away with it. That's why I did it in the first place, because I don't care." And then see, if you thought the fact that we're gonna have this chapter, like I said, basically stated that this arc is going to be longer than we originally thought. Now, if you thought that was enraging, what was more enraging, in fact, 10 times more enraging, was the fact that Natsu just cut his hair,
Ah.
and now he looks virtually the same
Yeah.
as
What the
before.
fuck, Mashima?
Except the only thing is different now is that he has is slightly more muscular,
Mhm.
and that's barely noticeable. But he also just has a bunch of new scars and stuff from I guess training
Yeah.
and from the battle against Tartarus. Like that's it.
Yeah.
It's just like with Lucy, her hair got a little longer and she got a little bustier. That's it.
Mhm.
Like our first two new character designs of Fairy Tail members, and they weren't that different. Natsu's was majorly different with the hair. Like the hair being longer did so much for Natsu's look,
Oh yeah.
but now it's
I know we were talking about it. We're like, this is a great new look for him, and he gets rid of it in one chapter.
so which is makes people worried that there's a possibility that this might happen with other characters. Like they'll be reintroduced into the story with this awesome new look, and then they'll just pick up whatever they were wearing a year ago at the Tartarus arc, and that's what they're and go back to their old look.
Mhm.
For the most part, like honestly, like this makes me like these to properly compare it, their new quote unquote new looks for Lucy and Natsu are like friggin' first gen red and blue shinies. Which, as everybody knows, because of the technology at the time, they couldn't have so many different colors, and so like they were usually like one like shade off.
Mhm.
That kind of shade difference that only women know, and interior designers are the only ones who can tell the difference between the two colors. But normal people are just like, no, that's not white. That's not eggshell or friggin' whatever else you call white. It's white.
It's Sand Castle or whatever.
It's like it's friggin' baby bottom white and friggin' eggshell white. No, it's all white.
It's white. It's
That's
fucking white.
exactly. Or like different cuts. Like that's what I feel like it is. It's like their look is changed so little that you can barely tell the difference.
Mhm.
In fact, I remember when I first read the when you read last week's chapter, you barely first time if you read the chapter too, honestly, if you read last week's chapter too quickly, you probably would have missed the fact that Lucy's hair got longer and her boobs were a little bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would miss the changes if you read went through the chapter too quickly.
Yeah, this chapter showed a little bit more, I think,
Well,
of a
I'm
little
talking.
bit of more
I'm
curves.
just starting. That's in reference. I'm talking to their new quote unquote new looks. If you
Yeah,
don't sit there and really look at them, you're not going to notice the difference.
yeah,
But in terms of this chapter, I mean, there was a little more. There was a lot more heart, I'd say, because it showcased what the normal relationship between Lucy and Natsu with the whole very the relationship they had before as partners.
yeah.
And then, of course, Natsu says, you know what? Lucy's asleep. There's only one thing we could do. Now, normal people in that situation, if they were a normal mischievous person, might do something dirty. No, Natsu's like, let's draw on her face.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Natsu was freaking Master Roshi would have been all over her her goodie bags.
Mm-hmm.
But Natsu's like, nope, I'm gonna draw all over her face as a joke. So then he goes in to draw on her face and is stopped in his tracks by the fact that he sees her map of her keeping track of where everyone is,
Mm-hmm.
and he realizes that wait, all this time she's been spending her time looking for these people, and I don't want her hard work to go to waste, and he decides to do something now about it. We don't know what until the following morning. But it's also worth to note, because just in case you didn't know, did confirm it in this chapter that Natsu did not know the fairy tale disbanded.
Mm-hmm.
And it was clarified that it was the day after Natsu left is when the official announcement was made to the members.
Right.
And that Makarov is missing,
Mm-hmm.
which further confirms my theory that we're going to get a new master, with it most likely being Loxus.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, Makarov's missing. Guaranteed equals guaranteed new master.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, but like I said, Fairy Tail's not going to be back. Fairy Tail Guild's not going to be back until the end of the arc, when they've collected all the members again. Fairy Tail's not going to be a guild again until they fully get back together.
And have a master in place.
Yeah, which again is going to be Loxus.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so now. And so now, so to rectify, to
Yeah,
help.
he said rectum. Hey, when is it gonna be AGX turn?
Anyway, sorry, my dog's barking.
I can show you my world,
Shrek.
shining, shimmering, and erected.
Anyway,
Let me point it the right way.
hold on, I gotta let the dog out.
Right. What's gonna be my turn? You're not. We're not done. We're not there yet. What do you fucking take? What are you writing, a fucking essay? What is this?
If it was an essay, it'd be easy. Alright. By the way, just in case you guys didn't know, my dog's name is Oscar. We named that because whenever we take too long to do something, he starts barking.
Mm.
Anyway, like how they do with the Oscars, and if your speech goes too long, they start playing music.
Yeah, I got it.
Anyway, so the last point we have to note in this chapter is the fact that what Natsu did to or what he did in response to seeing this, all of Lucy's hard work, was creating a giant flaming, like literally wrote fairy tale in giant flames all over the castle.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get awoken by the soldiers trying to break into the house. And of course, what does Natsu do? He grabs Lucy and a bunch of stuff, one of which is the map on the wall, which I don't know how you would be able to pack that thing up in a rush.
I don't know.
But somehow he did, and they run off. And of course, once again, Lucy's like freaking out, like, why the hell did you do this? And the king's like, pardons him again for this, saying, I forgive him. And then you have the whole, and the fact that Happy mentioned that, it's harmless, won't do any damage to the castle, and it'll disappear on its own after a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Which is nice, because it shows that Natsu has reached a new plateau in not only power, but control over his fire.
Yeah.
Because, in all honesty, the idea of controlling his fire, this is only the second time that Natsu controlling his fire was actually thought, even considered.
Yeah.
Like, okay, and if you guys remember, the first time was when he was battling that, what was it, the wind guy, with the Grim Reaper wind guy.
Yeah.
In the very first arc.
Yeah, Aragorn.
He uses it he controls his flames to create a hand so he can get himself back on the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And then we haven't seen him do any flame control type thing until this, where he uses it to create a harmless flame that is just meant as a signal, not as a damage, which is nice. Yeah. Hopefully we'll see more stuff like this, where he's utilizing the flame other than just, it's not so he's still going to cause destruction, but anyway. So this was a good chapter, and the main reason why a lot of people felt this was a restart, not only because we have to find the members again and have them be reintroduced, but also, they also, just like at the end of the very first, as was pointed out, the very first chapter of Fairy Tail ended this exact same way.
Yep.
Them getting chased out of town, and Natsu running off out of town with dragging Lucy along. Which is, and literally, I actually had one of the people I would go to for Fairy Tail chapter reviews actually held up the last page of chapter 1.
Yep, it's basically the same, I know.
It is exactly, virtually the same. Which is, I guess, a little he's paying homage to himself. That egotistical bastard.
Yeah, it's just a callback to the.
Yeah. So it was a good chapter, and it still gives me high hopes for this post-time skip Fairy Tail.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. Let's move on.
All right. To the meat and potatoes of the manga section.
Yeah.
Sorry, the meat, the potatoes, the corn, the salad, and everything in between.
Yep.
Toriko. Well, first important thing to note was, now in last week's chapter we talked about how the monkeys that were watching the fight were so mortified, so horrified that Bambina broke out of his skin and was able to use his full power, that they bolted. They just bolted.
Yeah.
But that the sheer fact that him basically breaking from his shackles and able to summon his full power created such a powerful aura that every single living thing on the entire planet instantly had such a feeling in their hearts that caused them to question what would you do? What would you want your last meal to be? The fact that his aura alone caused everything, from animals to humans across the globe, to suddenly start eating their favorite foods because in fear that they're going to die, so they want to not disappoint themselves in death and how they want right before dying. That's how powerful his true aura was.
Yeah, that was insane.
Really? Toshi, really?
Mitsutoshi. And then he friggin' destroys a satellite. Oh my gosh.
Oh, we haven't even gotten that far. The fact is that then Toriko and the gang's like, okay, they said like, okay, they asked that same question themselves, and they said, you know what? They want their last meal to be pear. So even if they have to die to get it, they're gonna get it from him, pear from him, and eat it before dying at his hand. Which, and they also do note that okay, you shouldn't be too mad at Bambina for getting pissed because you did just grab his balls. That was you gotta make sure you note that part because Mitsutoshi has loved this arc to be weird as shit.
Yeah.
And here's some of the other insane stuff. Bambina, after upon getting a closer look. Now, when he first broke out of his skin, I thought that thing in the center of his chest was like a heart that was like looked like it was about to pop out. No, that was the Mugen punch that was still going on.
Right.
But somehow, some way, Bambina used Embu to stop the Mugen punch. So once again, we do not get a clarification as to whether or not it can actually go on forever.
Right.
First time, the guy was ripped to shreds before it could be finished. Before, he went off. He was stopped, and now this time it was stopped again. So we still, basically, at this point, what the Mugen's purpose is that it's just gonna allows for a spike. It's more like not infinite, more so it's as long, and it goes on for as long as it needs to. For story purposes.
Yeah.
You might get so that's it for that. Now, what's interesting to note was we also learned something else that's very important. The one thing that the four Heavenly Kings thought would give them an advantage in the fight actually hinders them. And what is that, you may ask?
The Onis.
Their gourmet demon's left arm. If they try to summon that, it will cause their cells to go out of balance, and they could no longer use Embus. They end up falling to the ground, which actually this time
saved them.
Saved them because it activated instinctively, like almost like the demons knew that they were going to die, had to activate or else they would die. And Bambina, just with a swipe of his tail, cut everything like in a friggin' radius. And for whatever reason, and then the strike goes so far, it goes out into space and cuts a satellite in half. The sheer, like the pressure of him swinging his tail was that huge, that massive. That's just insane.
Yeah.
And it just goes on from here. Now the next point is, which intrigue, like my mom, like I said, Toriko has just been consistently blowing my mind. Next part, you got Kaka, who's shady as shit. Kaka goes to the den shop to do something. We don't know, and we will never know because of. But the fact that Kaka was able to completely erase her presence and prevent Terry, Kiss, and Queen from noticing her. It was almost like she was invisible, but she wasn't. She was able to mask her presence that well that they couldn't even see her, even though she wasn't invisible. Which is insane of itself. But then she goes in the Den Shark with the way her face looks and the way she moves and the way everything seemingly sounds like it's leading up to her for some reason, possibly trying to kill Komatsu for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Which is weird as shit because it's like, well, okay, why?
Yeah, for what purpose?
Why would she want to kill him? Why? Is that to motivate them to some new level of power, or is that to not move away or eliminate their purpose for fighting against Bambina so they would leave?
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe she wanted to just give Toriko like this massive power up, like from getting angry. She's like, okay, this is a manga. This is a shonen. If I do this, maybe he'll get angry, and maybe he'll power up and, shit like that.
Yeah. So, but before she could do anything, Komatsu wakes up and sits up.
The fuck?
You're like, okay, how the hell did he do that? And, second question, what the hell does this mean? What is going to happen as a result of this?
Yeah, I read one comment that kind of piqued my interest that said that Komatsu woke up for the same reason of everybody feeling like that, the whole last meal thing, like apparently maybe he wanted to eat pear so badly that he woke
Well,
up
he doesn't
or
even
something.
know. Remember, he's been unconscious since his heart got squished. So,
yeah, I know. That's just a comment I read. It's like, maybe there's
but of
something
course,
to it, but
but see, here's the thing: whatever happens as a result of this is going to be filed under the Toriko's self-induced, or should I say, scapegoat, or should I say,
food luck.
basically, food luck. Literally, it's going to be him. It's going to be all categorized as food luck.
Yeah.
It's just categorized as food luck. And whatever he does is going to be food luck. The reason why he woke up, food luck. It's just going to be all intertwined.
Oh, yeah.
So now, because he woke up, we will not know what Kaka was trying to do. Because obviously this shocks her. So she doesn't even know what to do now.
I didn't do.
Which now,
I wasn't watching you in your sleep or anything. I wasn't gonna do anything weird. Trust me.
well, Kamatsu's probably isn't even probably going to think about that.
Yeah.
Now, the last thing that we have to note that is probably the most, in my opinion, the most insane. Like, Bambina is insane as all fuck. When you have the character, when the fact that in the previous chapter it was established that Umbu's purpose was to unite all, what was it, I think, 8 trillion cells or something, I
Well,
think.
it was 240 between the four of them, so
No, I know. The 240 divided by 4 is 6 trillion.
be
Wait, 60 trillion.
60. Yeah.
The purpose of Embu was to use the fundamentals of Embu is to unite your 60 trillion cells to ward off damage as a defense. And it was established last chapter that the secret technique was to unify those cells for an offensive move, which will take something as a simple tap and increase that power exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the chapter, the four Heavenly Kings are going to not only take control of all 60 trillion other cells, but unify and all 240 trillion of all four of them together for one solid attack.
Yeah.
Which means they are going to do some otherworldly shit.
Oh yeah.
And Bambina's gonna love it because he's probably gonna be able to take that shit and he's probably gonna like it's gonna be awesome. Next week's chapter is probably gonna be even more insane because you got this
Oh yeah.
unified attack from the four Heavenly Kings against Bambina, plus Komatsu's woke up.
If he laughs off that attack, my mind is just gonna burst.
He's not. He's gonna take some damage from that, but the fact is that it's not gonna do as much damage as that we think it should do.
Right.
Like, you figure a unified Embu attack from all four Heavenly Kings, unifying all of their cells together, should do some significant damage, but it's not gonna do that much damage, or as much damage as you would think,
Mm-hmm.
which is what's gonna make it even more insane. Or they're setting it up for next chapter. They somehow do enough damage to him. Maybe not beat him, but do enough damage to Bambina where they can actually harvest Pear and the fight's over.
Yeah.
Meaning, and if that's the case, that means next chapter, in theory, would be the last chapter of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Which honestly, in my opinion, it would be disappointing because I know that if the fight went on longer, he would pull out some even more insane shit. But the fact of the matter is that I don't think the Toriko fandom can handle it getting any more OP, at least in this arc. So I would say they obtain pair in either the next chapter or the next chapter after that. The fight ends and they obtain pair and start cooking it, heal Komatsu. Like I could see them maybe like at the end of next chapter they obtain pair, and then they in the next chapter they cook it and prepare it, whatever else they still have to do before, and then give it to Komatsu, and then that chapter ends with Komatsu being all better,
Mm-hmm.
and then they do the token everybody eats the ingredient together chapter after that.
Oh yeah.
So anyway,
Obligatory.
yeah, and then of course you get now the question is will pair unlock what will pair do to the four heavenly kings when they eat it? Will they unlock the right arm, a leg? What is it, or is it we're gonna have to wait until the next ingredient for them to unlock more of their demon? There's a lot of questions, but I thought it was a very good chapter. Gave you the right amount of intrigue, action, and just makes you want more.
Yeah, definitely. Very good chapter.
So
All right.
I believe that's it for Toriko.
All right. So we had a Shingeki chapter this week, and so that'll be reviewed now. Um, so I usually don't go too in detail with Shingeki or my monthly chapters, but I will try to cover like the main points. In this case, the first main point is about Historia refusing to turn into a Titan and eat Eren, even though Eren is like consigned to die, like and be eaten by Historia, but she doesn't want to, and so Rod Rice turns into a Titan instead. But luckily, Mikasa and Ko and Captain Levi and all them, they come around and they save Historia and Eren for now. But it looks like like this is most of the chapter because it was pretty short in terms of progression. There was a lot of dialogue and not much progression at all. Like the last main point was just Eren like trying to die because I don't know why, but he's just being whatever. And now he put like it looked like a grenade in his mouth and it explodes. And so now he's dead and Shingeki no Kyojin is over and we can all go home and rave about how bad the ending was. Now, um, so so I'm assuming he's gonna transform into a Titan. But if he's dead, I'm sure that somebody will take over for main character like Historia or so whatever. I don't I don't think it's gonna happen, but you never know. But anyway, I'm sure he's gonna turn into a Titan, and he's going to maybe wreck Rod Rice, maybe not because apparently he was bigger than the Colossal Titan, which was Berthold. That's his name. Um, it was Reiner and Berthold or something like that. But he's real big, so we'll see what happens. Apparently, Rod Rice he's probably a um, strong Titan, but Eren has the power to control the Titan, so obviously not that one, but he can control like the regular Titans, whatever regular Titans are, considering that it's possible that every Titan was once a human at one point, so you never know. In fact, that seems very likely. And I mean, it seems more and more like it's just like humanity seems to be more of a threat than the Titans right now because they are the Titans, and at the same time they're just like being dicks. I don't know. Oh, and there was another big reveal that the first family member who like led the first king, his desire was to see the Titans rule over the humans, and it appears that like certain people have inherited that will, I guess, which is, I mean, kind of crazy. It's an interesting reveal, and we'll see what happens with that later. We can see like Frida, uh, Historia's sister, was freaking out at certain times. I'm guessing because it was like imposing like the first king's will on her. That's what I'm assuming. Uh, it seemed pretty heavily implied. Kind of seems like Hunter x Hunter shit, like the Illumi and his needle. But if you haven't seen that, I won't spoil that. But I mean, that's about it. Honestly, the chapter was pretty quick in terms of progression. It was a normal length chapter, but not much got done. So those are the main points. We're gonna see what happens because I don't know how much Levi can do in this situation. We'll see. I mean, the floor is collapsing above them, so I mean ceiling for them, but it's the floor technically. So I mean, there's a lot of pressing issues that's going to be dealt with next issue. Um, so yeah, I mean that's about it. It was an okay, decent to good chapter, I would say. Yeah, and I guess that's about it. I guess we'll wait for next month. So Shokugeki no Soma this week was okay, but now we're starting to wind down from the usual, the cooking tournament. We see the girls, they're hanging out a little bit, and actually Hayama is now hosting, it looks like, Kurokiba and Soma, where they're at his house and June is serving them cookies and tea and stuff, and so it's kind of nice that they're hanging out. I did kind of like that, and they're talking about the Carpaccio again, and Soma's really trying to get, quote unquote, his cooking down. And so ultimately, this new arc is leading us into this new thing, which is sort of a internship of some sort, where they have to accomplish something at their job within a week, and they've been assigned to specific uh, restaurants, which is pretty damn nice because I hear in cooking schools here in the U.S. They don't do shit for you. You just got to get an intern. So anyway, so what ends up happening is Soma ends up with Hisako of all people, and she's very cold towards him and shit like that. And yeah, it looks like they're gonna be partners for this new arc. And this new restaurant that they're going to, it was a very small restaurant. It looks like it's more of a lunch restaurant, and like the customers were leaving and they were complaining, saying how it was taking too long to eat because generally speaking a business lunch is supposed to last 30 minutes or less, because if you think about it, if you get a lunch break from work, it's supposed to be about 30-35 minutes so that they can cut your pay, and you have to be able to eat in that time. So if you're going out for lunch, you better damn sure you have to make damn sure it's quick. And so they're all leaving, saying it's not quick enough. It's obviously very slow, and the chapter ends with Hisako and Soma looking at each other, kind of confused, I guess. When I read the Raws, I thought like maybe there was going to be some kind of like thing where they're like hitting it off somehow. Who knows? So, I mean, I guess since this is the beginning of the arc, I can kind of start to make some predictions and things like that. So, this may be just a mini arc. We'll see. I think Soma's going to really grow. I think he'll grow as a result of Hisako.
and vice versa. Though I thought that was pretty obvious, though. My major prediction is that obviously Hisako is going to be part of the harem, which is not going to be surprising in the least bit to anybody, because everybody's a part of Soma's harem where all of a sudden they're falling for him. I wouldn't be surprised if Alice is in there all of a sudden, you know. But yeah, Hisako, they have the same like reading tastes in terms of manga, because if you recall, when Soma was about to go up against Subaru, he had he paid a visit by to Erina's place in order for her to taste his preliminary dish, and she just happened to have Hisako's manga volume on hand because she was in a rush to see that, because she thought it was Hisako, but it was Soma, but it was hers. So we're who knows? I mean, that's just an observation. I don't think anything of it, but maybe that'll come up again. It might. We'll see. I definitely think she'll become part of the harem, though. Be interesting if he actually did fall for Hisako, and it would be kind of an interesting twist. But I doubt that, because that's not how a harem usually works. Unless your name is Shuffle, of course, the anime Shuffle. But regardless of that, I guess as a chapter, it was okay, decent to good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Um, yeah, I do like that, whatever the girls are hanging out, but I really do like that Kurokiba, Soma, and Hayama are starting to hang out. It was noted that they hung out a couple times. So, yeah, I guess that'll be it for Shokugeki this week.